Good afternoon. It's Victory Monday, Niner fans. Victory Monday all day long. They can't tell us anything because the Niners won the game, and it's officially Seattle week. Look at that hawk hunt. It's about to be a bird hunt over the next couple of weeks. 49ers fresh off a big-time win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Was a big time win for the 49ers. They stay in first place. Seattle lost their game. We all know Thursday night, the 49ers going into Seattle to play the Seattle Seahawks. So this is a big time game, ladies and gentlemen, coming up. But it was a big, big win on Sunday yesterday for the 49ers. I'm hyped up, man. But there is some bad news we talked about earlier today. We got to address the bad news. So what's up, everybody in the chat? How's it going? Shout out to the Niner fans out there. Big news for the day was Talanoa Hufanga did tear his ACL. That's unfortunate news. That was what they feared last night. It's pretty much what we thought, but Kyle Shanahan confirmed it today. MRIs confirmed that he tore his ACL. He's out for the season. And they said if everything goes well and he rehabs good enough, he should be on track to play for week 1 of the next season, 2024 season. But that's way ahead of us. It just sucks for Talanoa Hufanga. He's such a good player, big part of this defense, an all-pro safety. So, prayers up to Big Huff. It sucks to see that. You don't want to see an injury like that to any player. And we talked about it earlier. Hufanga is just a fun player. He's great to the fans. He's just a good dude, So unfortunate news for him. But the big news is Jair Brown now is the next man up. And Adam says next man up. So, yeah, absolutely. We have to pray and hope that, Jair Brown is ready to take that role and step in the next direction. And, he did really play well last night. Jair Brown came in and he played exceptionally well. He had one, early scuff up. He got beat on a play and everybody was hating on the guy. And then after that, he had some big time plays, pass breakups. He had the first career interception, and towards the end of the game off a tip pass. So Jair Brown showed me a lot of heart and a lot of fortitude yesterday coming in a tough position. So shout out to big Jair Brown. That was much, much needed for him. And again, tough break for Talanoa Hufanga, but that's it. That's the NFL. There's been a lot of injuries this year. And unfortunately for the 49ers, they were not able to, break that trend. They weren't able to break the trend. So sucks for Huff, man. You don't want injuries to anybody, but a guy like that, he's just such a great dude, young player. It sucks, but I'm sure he'll bounce back. Next year will be a contract year, so he's going to want to play his butt off. So Talanoa Hufanga, much respect to you, man. He went out and he puts his heart into every game. So hopefully he bounces back and he's ready to rock and roll next year. Shout out to Raphael. He says Brown is ready to step up. He says like and subscribe. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you're not. Let's talk about it. Victory Monday, man. Let's review yesterday's game because there was a lot of great that happened on yesterday's game. The biggest to me, listen, man, Brock Purdy showed the world that he is an absolute dog, man. Like we talked about how he had a perfect passer rating yesterday, right? And the first time that's ever happened since Joe Montana in 1989. Brock Purdy today, Richard Sherman says if he was a top 5 pick, they'd be talking about him with Patrick Mahomes as the face of the league. Absolutely. People want to see Brock fail. They want to see this man fail because of the fact they want to see Brock fail because Brock Purdy was the last pick. And they're like, oh, he must be bad. Why did he not get picked earlier? He's got to be bad. So they want to stand on that take. It's a lazy take. And it's the same people every single year that have these lazy takes, lazy takes, and they just roll with it because we've been talking about this since the offseason. Brock Purdy last night, 333 yards. He had 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. The deep pass is getting better every week. And Richard Sherman's right. If he was a top 5 pick, people would be glazing him. They'd be talking about him with the likes of Patrick Mahomes. But again, we hear other names like Josh Allen and Justin Herbert, who rightfully so, they get a lot of hype. They were high draft picks. But Brock Purdy doesn't get that hype because of the fact he's not one of those top name quarterbacks. And look, you got Zach Wilson that gets every chance in the world. Brock Purdy, he doesn't get those chances. So You know, is what it is. But he was an absolute beast last night. He had an 82.6 PFF grade. I mean, just everything you look at Brock's game is been amazing lately. And he's his last two games, he's thrown for over 600 yards, no touchdown or no interceptions, 6 touchdowns. Like he has been cooking ever since everybody has been scrutinizing him. After the bye week, he's come out and he's played some of the best football in the NFL. Before the bye week, it was like, oh, is Brock going to be the same? Is this going to happen? What's Brock Purdy going to be able to do now that he's been exposed and the film's on him? Look at this. Brock Purdy since week 9 by 40 for 51, 629 passing yards, 6 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 157.3 passer rating, #1 in the NFL. That's disgusting. That is so crazy, man. Raphael says Purdy is 3-1 against #1 overall QBs. Like that is insane. Brock Purdy is playing at such a very, very high level. I mean, we talked about the perfect passer rating. He has a passer rating, we just said, a 157.3 over his last 2 starts, right? That's the highest passer rating by an NFL quarterback over a 2-start span since QB starts were first tracked in 1950. So since they've been keeping track of all this stuff, Brock Purdy's the highest passer rating in 2 back-to-back starts of all time. That's crazy, man. He is playing at a very high level, and this is great after his, you know, tough stretch. The 3-week stretch was really rough for him, So it 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 says a lot of what he is about, and the fact that he's been able to bounce back. Raphael says the team believes in him. There's a reason he has the captain patch in his second year. Absolutely, you don't just give the captain patch to nobody on to bums on the team. You give them to the dogs, and that's why he got one. He got one because he is an absolute dog, man. You gotta love Brock Purdy. He is so good. And let's talk about some other players that stood out yesterday. We didn't get to really go over everybody. Busy day, but let's talk about the top graded offensive 49er players in Tampa Bay yesterday. We had George Kittle, 87.8. George Kittle is being George Kittle again. The 49ers are emphasizing the ball to George Kittle, and he has been just lights out lately, man. You got to love it. I think the 49ers need to keep pushing the ball to George Kittle. His last 3 games, 20 catches, 354 yards, man. This guy has been absolutely what we want out of George Kittle. Like we have always sat here as Niner fans said he's the best tight end in the game. We know how good he blocked. He's a great receiver. Like this is why George Kittle is the best in the league. Yes, he blocks. He does great in that, but he's also a phenomenal receiving tight end. And that's it. 20 catches, 354 yards. He's getting touchdown after touchdown after touchdown. That's what we want to see from George Kittle. And he has been playing out of his mind lately. Brock Purdy and George Kittle, that connection is just so great. And you know what? You got to love this for Kittle because now they finally have a franchise quarterback. Before Brock, man, they went through quarterback after quarterback. George Kittle in the offseason, he says, like, I went through so many quarterbacks in my tenure here with the 49ers. Like 6 quarterbacks. He's had Brian Hoyer. He had Nick Mullins. He had C.J. Beathard. He had Brock Purdy. He's had Jimmy Garoppolo. He's had Trey Lance, right? All these quarterbacks. And finally, with Trey Lance, it's like stability for this team, man. It is nice to see finally he has a quarterback that trusts him, that can get him the ball, and knows his talents. And the crazy part about Brock, or not Brock, but George, is yes, he can block, but he's faking to block. Sometimes he looks like he's going to block. The defense is selling on it, and then boom, he goes and runs a route. Boom, wide open. The big play last week, hello, that was amazing. And then this week in the end zone, Brock knows he's a red zone threat, and this is what we've been screaming for over the years. Just throw the damn ball to Kittle in the red zone, and now that's what they're doing. George Kittle is just absolutely crazy. Who's going to stop him on Thursday? I want to know. I don't know anybody that's going to stop him. This is crazy, man. It's just crazy how good he's become. And Brandon Ayuk, we got to talk about Brandon Ayuk. He's played exceptionally well himself. Yesterday, he had an 87.6 PFF grade. Although, PFF's whatever. It is what it is. But we saw how good Brandon Ayuk was yesterday, man. 156 yards on 5 catches. He's got the second most yards per catch in the NFL behind Tyreek Hill. He is also just, last night, on 5 catches, 156 yards. That's the most catches. That's the most yards any player has had in just 5 catches or less in the NFL season. Like he is delivering. He talked about November, December is when the dogs come out. Brandon Ayuk is absolutely right because the dogs are coming out, and he is an absolute top dog. And I'll tell you what, Brandon Ayuk last night showed me that he's about that money, man. We've talked about it a couple weeks ago. I said, listen, if Brandon Ayuk wants to be a top flight receiver, top paid, this is when he has to get it done. And shout out to Ayuk, he's doing exactly that. A couple weeks ago, people were, you're too critical on Ayuk. It wasn't that I was criticizing him. I said, you got to catch those big catches, right? You got to have the big money catches. If you're going to drop catches, if you're not going to catch touchdowns, you're not going to get paid like a highly touted wide receiver, which he is. We all know his route running is impeccable. But you got to make the catches. And these last 2 weeks, Brandon Ayuk has been absolutely phenomenal, man. And that's what you got to love to see. Exactly. He wants the bag, and now he's proven it. If you want the bag, you got to stand and deliver. And that's exactly what Brandon Ayuk is doing. He's standing and delivering, ladies and gentlemen. Brandon Ayuk is just, he's money, man. He's money. And those catches were just, you could tell he's having fun getting the deep passes. This is what he's wanted since he's been on the Niners. He wants those deep passes. He wants the big catches to go downfield and score touchdowns. That's what he wants, and he's doing it, man. Love to see it. A couple other players played well. Trent Williams being there is huge. He's still getting back to form, but his presence, Trent Williams, we don't talk about him enough because he's just so good. It's like you forget his name sometimes because you don't hear his name because he doesn't make mistakes. He doesn't do anything bad. When you hear his name, it's usually like a highlight block or something crazy like that. So Trent Williams, man, being back is amazing. Deebo Samuel, I know he didn't have like a huge game, touchdown or big yardage, but he still had some big plays, and his presence opens things up for the 49ers offense. He's just being there is there. His presence just being there is huge. And, Christian McCaffrey, too. He didn't have like a monster performance, but he was very efficient. And, he got big yards. He had a touchdown, finally went back to the touchdown, started a new streak. And now the thing about Christian McCaffrey, you could see how hard this guy plays. It was the fourth quarter. Game was pretty much wrapped up. They didn't get a fourth down conversion. He's on the sideline, like throwing his iPad. He's pissed off. He's pissed off at himself that he didn't get a first down on the fourth down. The game's about done. He has his iPad. He's fucking so mad. That's Christian McCaffrey. That's an absolute dog, man. Christian McCaffrey, man, crazy. He is wild. His work ethic is second to none. I love that guy, and he played his ass off yesterday. But, the story of running backs yesterday was Elijah Mitchell. He got a little bit of carries yesterday, and that was nice to see. We've been talking about how are they going to lessen the load on Christian McCaffrey just a little bit. Let him survive into the playoffs, and that's exactly what we need. We can't overuse him because by the playoffs, he's going to be tired. He had 21 carries, 78 yards. Obviously, that's not the huge game you want, but the more telling stat was Elijah Mitchell getting usage in the game. He had 4 carries, 24 yards. He ran really, really nice. Even though it's just 4 carries, it was nice to see them using Elijah Mitchell in the game. So definitely happy to see Elijah getting a little bit of action, and changing it up, giving Christian a few plays off here and there. So love to see that. My man Adam says, what do you think about Steve Wilkes? I think these last 2 weeks, his presence on the sideline has made a difference. I know some people will tell you it won't, it hasn't, or whatever the case is. But Fred Warner yesterday talked about how the communication's the best it has been all season on the sidelines with Steve Wilkes, man. And I think that's a huge key. You could tell he's kind of like bringing that energy. He's celebrating. I feel like the communication's better. The tackling got better yesterday. If you watch that game, they didn't miss as many tackles. I just think that things are starting to get a little bit more tightened up. There's still a lot of penalties that I don't like, that I think they need to clean up. But again, 49ers only missed 4 tackles against Tampa Bay. This is kind of where they were early in the season. Let's look at the games over the last few weeks. So Pittsburgh, they missed 7 tackles. Rams missed 8. Giants, they only missed 3. Arizona, they missed 4. Dallas, they only missed 2. The last couple of weeks, they were missing a lot. Look at this. 10 against Cleveland, 9 against Minnesota, 13 against Cincinnati. They missed 7 against Jacksonville, but Tampa Bay, they only missed 4 tackles. I feel like that is a big key, that the fact that Steve Wilkes is communicating better, players are in better positions. That is the other key, is players are in better positions. I think the secondary is playing better. They're not going to be perfect. They're going to get beat here and there. I still think screen passes are something they have to work on. They still have to work on getting better at penalties. Those have been two areas that, have not been great. Pressure sometimes still a little, no, it still could be better. I feel like Nick Bosa and Chase Young are still trying to get that motor running and, get that chemistry. I think it still was nice. I mean, they both did their thing. Nick Bosa caused the strip. Him and Fred Warner came in and caused that strip sack and the fumble. Chase Young got a sack yesterday. So as the game kind of went on, the defensive line was starting to get a little bit more pressure. So that is one thing we got to, take in consideration. Like, they're still gelling, but they're playing better. Armstead had a great game yesterday. Actually, the guy that stood out on the defensive line was Arik Armstead. Look at these stats. Arik Armstead had 12 pressures yesterday. So I know a lot of people aren't saying they're not getting sacked sometimes, so it's like they must not be doing anything. They are generating pressures. Baker Mayfield did a good job of getting the ball out of his hand pretty quickly. He actually got the ball out quick. They were running a lot of like toss sweeps to the edge, and they were doing a lot of screen passes. So in order to beat the blitz or the pressure from the D line, you got to get rid of the ball quick. And I think Baker did a good job of that. But look at Armstead had 12 pressures yesterday. Holy shit. Nick Bosa had 9. Chase Young had 5. Hargrave had 4. So I feel like the top line, those guys, those dogs were being the dogs they needed to be. Armstead, Bosa, Young, Hargrave, they were getting to Baker. Baker was just getting rid of the ball very quickly. Towards the end, though, you could tell the offensive line was getting very tired. The best pressure of the night was the Chase Young sack. They got right past Tristan Wirfs, man. Tristan Wirfs, woo, he couldn't handle the Chase Young pressure and ate up Baker Mayfield. So you got to love it, man. My man Randy Daytona says, so is Purdy elite now? I mean, woo, you look at those stats these last couple of weeks, man. You kind of start thinking he's getting close to that elite level. I mean, we got to see him continue it. I still want to see Brock Purdy be able to win a come-from-behind game and be a crunch time warrior. Like, he has to be able to win games in crunch time when it matters most. But right now, he's showing us elite traits, passer rating, QBR. He's tops in the league. His ability to spread the offense, his ability to create with his legs. It's been pretty nice to watch. We haven't seen this out of a quarterback with the 49ers in God knows how long. It is very, nice. And I think using the word elite is still a little premature because we all want to use the word, oh, he's an elite quarterback. He's close. He's very, very close. But the thing is, he's got to be able to take this team and, lead this team to a game-winning drive. And then, we could say he's elite. I think he's got his second year. He's 23 years old. I think he's on his way to being an elite franchise-level quarterback that any team would wish they would have on the team. Because that's the thing. If you're an elite quarterback, any team can have you, and you'd be able to take them and win games with them. That, to me, is what elite quarterback is. Is you can go on any single team, no matter what the weapons look like, no matter what the roster looks like, you will take this team that you're on and elevate them to a playoff, at least run, right? That's what I think elite means in my eyes. Elite doesn't mean you're just putting up a lot of stats, right? If you're just putting up stats, it doesn't matter because if you get to the playoffs, you may not be able to win or, and you may not be able to lead a team from behind. So he's very close. He's doing so good. Brock Purdy, man, again, we talked about it, the perfect passer rating, the QBR, the passer rating. He's leading the NFL in those top categories. He's creating. He's improving his deep pass. Like, his deep ball is getting better. He's getting the strength back that he may have lost, from that injury. And that's the thing that people don't, remember or talk about enough. He came off a big surgery this offseason. I'm sure he lost a little strength here and there. And also, I think the bye week served him well for resting. He got to rest his arm a little bit, and take a little relaxer, take a little deep breath. And that, I think, has really helped him because you see the difference between the last 2 weeks and those 3 games they lost. It's a big difference in Brock. I think he just needed to take a deep breath and exhale because, I mean, he's basically coming off a rookie season. Sometimes you just need a little mental break, and he has. So Brock Purdy, man, is he elite? Not yet, but he's close, very close. Let's talk more about this defense, though. Right, we talked about the pressures. 49ers did pretty well against pressuring Baker, but Baker played well enough to get rid of the ball. I mean, there were some issues where I was like, man, Baker's really cooking here and there. At times, he was getting rid of the ball very quickly. But the guy that stood out to me on defense is Fred Warner. We all know Fred Warner had a monster game last night. He had 11 tackles, forced fumble recovery, half a sack, tip pass. Guy was everywhere. It was his birthday, and he played with like so much energy. I think John Middlecoff last night said he played like a prime Ray Lewis. Like, he really was lurking all over the field. He was going sideline to sideline. He had his hand almost on every play. Like, Fred Warner was coming for blood last night. And it's like he had his fingerprints on almost every major play, man. I love that guy. And he is making the case for being a defensive player of the year. Like, he's been the best player on the 49ers defense. And if they end up becoming one of the top teams in the league, 1, 2 seed, whatever the case is, and one of the best records, and their defense continues to play where they're at lately, he's going to be the major reason why. And I know it's going to be hard for voters to say, you give the award to Fred Warner because he's a linebacker, he's not an edge rusher. He may not have the impact that they think like a Myles Garrett might have on the game, or a TJ Watt, or Max Crosby. But Fred Warner's impact on the 49ers is crazy, man. It's crazy. It is so crazy how good Fred Warner is. He was all over the field, and he does it on a weekly basis. Honestly, man, this is Fred Warner's best season of his career so far. Like, the highlight tape, when this 2023 season is done, and we run a highlight tape on Fred Warner, I think someone tweeted this too, it's going to be insane. And I thought about that. I was like, damn, you're right. Whoever tweeted that, I was like, thinking about all the big plays Fred Warner's had this season. I was like, dude, when we put together a highlight package when this season's done, like they always do, the Fred Warner highlight package is going to be ridiculous. I mean, fuck, man. 3 forced fumbles, 3 interceptions. He's got sacks, this season. He's all over the place, man. He's so, so good. I'm so happy that the 49ers have Fred. Like, can you imagine where this defense would be without Fred Warner? It just wouldn't be the same. It would not be the same. He is so, you take away this man, Fred Warner, from this defense, not even close to where it is. That's why he is an MVP in my book. Like, he has to be an MVP. Guy's a freaking monster, man. I love Fred. All pro Fred is an absolute dog. Let's switch gears now. Talk about the offensive line. The offensive line, you know what? Let's talk about it, because this is the big key. This is one of the big areas a lot of people have been worried about for the 49ers, right? If we talk about weak links, this is probably one of the weaker links on the 49ers. So pressures allowed by the 49ers offensive line. Spencer Burford allowed 4. Jake Brendel allowed 3. John Feliciano allowed 3. Colton McKivitz allowed 2. Trent Williams allowed 1. Trent Williams still rehabbing, not 100%, but he's the best linebacker or best offensive lineman we got. So I feel like Buccaneers defensive line was way better than the Jaguars defensive line. So I think that's why we saw a little bit more pressures this week than last week. I mean, Vita Vea is a monster, man. So they were pressuring that interior like nothing. Like, Jake Brendel was getting dog. Burford, like, Vita Vea was getting in there. So I feel like that is still an area where they got to really fix up. And we've talked about it. The right side of the O-line, the middle has not been as strong as it has to be. Colton McKivitz, he wasn't horrible this week. He played on the bum ankle. He wasn't as bad as I thought he was going to be this week. He actually wasn't that bad this week. So the offensive line has just been up and down. It's a roller coaster. It's inconsistent. But sometimes you're like, man, this O-line, they're holding up. And then sometimes you're like, they did have some sacks allowed, So I feel like there's still improvement that can be had from this O-line, right? That's going to be big when Aaron Banks comes back, though, because I feel like Aaron Banks can come in to that left guard spot where he usually is. And I think they have to kick Feliciano to that right guard spot because, Raphael, I agree with you. Burford looked like he's struggling. He's struggling right now, and I love the guy, but he's having a hard time out there. Letting up pressures, and I don't know if he's having a sophomore slump or whatever, but he is just definitely not in the right headspace that he normally is. So I think you got to move Feliciano. I feel like he played pretty good last night. He did leave up a couple pressures, but again, the Tampa Bay's D-line is pretty tough. So, I mean, I wasn't too like, oh my God, Feliciano sucks after that game. But I looked at that game going, oh man, Spencer Burford's struggling already. So I think if Banks comes back, he might be back this week. That's what the reports are saying. Last week, Kyle Shanahan said Aaron Banks has a chance to return to Thursday Night Football. But if he doesn't, he'll definitely be back against Philly. Because if he's close to coming back against Seattle, you get a couple extra days, he should be back against Philly. Turf toe is one of those lingering issues. You can't just rush it. So if we get Trent Williams, Aaron Banks on that left side, they're solid. They could run. They could do a lot more things on that. You got Jake Brendel Hopefully he just continues to get better. He's been up and down again. He's been inconsistent. Some days he looks great. Some days he looks like, what the hell? Right guard spot, I think, is huge. I think they got to move Feliciano there, or at least platoon him with Burford. And then you have, Colt McKivitz. Hopefully he just surprises us and plays great. Sometimes I'm watching him like, okay, it's not bad. Sometimes I'm like, oh, God, Colton, what are you doing? So tough, tough, tough. Yeah, Rick, we got to keep going on no matter what. Absolutely. Jimmy says Seattle, and Seattle is one of the best games to go to, a great atmosphere. Dude, Seattle game. I've never been to a Seattle game like lately, years ago, way back. This is years ago, but not since, the new days. I got to go, man. I want to go to a Seattle Niner game one of these. Next year, the road game, I got to go. I got to go to Seattle. It's Thanksgiving. Just didn't work out this year, but I got to go to a Niner Seattle game in Seattle. That's a vibe, man. Can't wait for that one. This can be a fun game this Thursday. So hyped up. Can't wait. Ah, man. Let's continue to go though. Back on this. So we're staying on offense. We talked about the O line. We got to talk about Brock Purdy and Brandon Ayuk. Like, we talked about them separately, but together as a unit, man. Let me tell you this. Guys, that these two have been absolutely locked in since the bye. Like, it's crazy, man. Yesterday, again, 6 targets, 5 catches, 156 yards, touchdown. All 5 catches of Brandon Ayuk were a first down or a touchdown. Like, he's just moving the chain. These two guys are locked in, man. Locked in. Brandon Ayuk and Brock Purdy are just friggin' locked in, and you love to see it. You absolutely love to see it. This is what you want to see out of your top, receiver, your franchise quarterback, that duo. You want to see a duo. You look at teams around the league, right? You have like Stephon Diggs and, Josh Allen. It's that duo, right? Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown. And 49ers, now they got Brock Purdy and Brandon Ayuk. And this duo is so, so scary together. So, it's fun. It's fun to see. So, those were guys that really stood out. Again, you got a shout out to Jair Brown. Really stepped in for Hufanga, was in a tough spot. Fred Warner was a beast. Chase Young's making instant impact. He had a QB hit, a sack, 2 tackles yesterday. He's been a very nice addition to this team. I feel like Steve Wilkes' vocal ability has been heightened since he's been on the field. Fred Warner talked about it, and he says ever since he's been on the field, the communication is the best it has been all season. So those are big keys. Offensive line definitely can be improved. The defense needs to stop making penalties. The penalties are really hurting the 49ers, but they're hanging tough. Sometimes it's a bend but don't break philosophy, and they're able to stop teams when they absolutely need to. They make big plays in big situations, and that's a big part of this team is they don't let things get out of control. When things are starting to slip, they know how to say, okay, we got to stay up front of the business and do what it takes to stop the bleeding, for the most part. And again, it's a team that knows how to battle through adversity. 3-game losing streak. Now they have a 2-game winning streak. So I feel like as long as they can clean up those little things, those mistakes, tighten up on some areas, tighten up in coverage a little bit, play better in pass protection a little bit here and there, clean up the penalties, this team is going a long way. I mean, yesterday was a great win. The game before was a great win. These last 2 games were really solid wins. It's not like the Bucs were a horrible team. They're not. They're a pretty good team. In the NFC, it's a wild chase. They're still in contention for the playoffs. Last week, the Jaguars they're a good team. They beat the Jaguars. They handled them. They were the hottest team in the NFL coming into that game. So 49ers had 2 really solid victories in the last 2 weeks, and they outscored their opponents big time. So I think these 2 games are really strong momentum builders. And, I was impressed with the 49ers because I thought they'd be looking ahead to Seattle. They were not looking ahead. I think Seattle was looking ahead to the 49ers, and they lost. They're going to be pissed off. They're going to be angry. The Seattle Seahawks are going to be playing because they know they have to beat the 49ers. This is a must-win game for the Seattle Seahawks. It's a must-win game for the 49ers too, but this has so much bearing for the Seahawks. Like, they have to win this game. Like, they have to. And let's talk about these next coming games. It is Victory Monday, but I know we got to go one game at a time. But let's take a look a little closer at the schedule. The upcoming schedule, is where is this? Let's see. I had this somewhere. So we all know the 49ers, the Seahawks, the Lions, and the Eagles. Those are like the top 4 teams, and the Cowboys. You know, the Cowboys, those are the top 5 teams in the NFC. So let's take a look at this. This is where we have to really focus on. So the 49ers, right, probably have a good shot to take a big lead in the playoff race, and the Lions too. So on paper, this is what it looks like um, in the next couple of weeks for for these big top teams. So San Francisco, they have Seattle, Philly, Seattle, Arizona. So 3 tough games. Arizona, I mean, they're a wild card, even though they're not a great team. They're competitive, and it's an NFC West division game. So again, Seattle, Philly, Seattle, Arizona. It's a tough little stretch for the Niners. The Philadelphia Eagles have Kansas City, Buffalo. Buffalo looks like they bounced back last night. You don't know what you're going to get out of Buffalo, but you got Kansas City, Buffalo, San Francisco, Dallas, and Seattle. Those are the next games for Philly, right? They got Kansas City. That's a tough game. Buffalo could be a tough game. San Francisco, tough game. Dallas, division game, tough game. And Seattle, tough game. Dallas has Washington. They always play each other tough, but Dallas should have the edge. They play Seattle, they play Philadelphia, and they play Buffalo. And then Seattle, they play the Niners, they play Dallas, they play the Niners and Philly. So Seattle has it rough. They play the Niners, Dallas, and Philly all the next couple of weeks. So this is going to be the next month of football really is going to determine, it's really going to determine who the hell is going to be the #1 seed. And the Lions, check this, out of all the teams, the Lions have a cake schedule coming up. During all those matchups that I just listed, Detroit has Green Bay, New Orleans, Chicago, and Denver. Denver's playing good lately, though. I know that game's a little harder than I thought it was going to be a couple of weeks ago. But they have Green Bay, New Orleans, 2 games they should win. Chicago, they should dominate that. And then Denver, maybe the game that gives them a hard time. But Detroit is set up right now to have the #1 seed. If this is tough for everybody else. Dallas, Seattle, Philadelphia, San Francisco, they're all going to be playing each other. Well, that's the thing is these 3 teams, Dallas, Philadelphia, and the 49ers, are all going to be playing each other, and Seattle. These 4 teams are going to be playing each other while Detroit is playing fucking Tom, Dick, and Harry, playing hopscotch and chewing bubble gum. This is crazy. This is crazy. They might be the #1 seed. They do have it easy, Raphael. It's crazy. They're chewing bubble gum, playing hopscotch, playing Xbox, sitting in their sweatpants while we're working hard. We got a construction hat on. We are going to work along with these other teams. It's going to be fun to watch. Keep an eye on that, ladies and gentlemen. Man, oh man, I'm excited, though, for the next couple of weeks of football. 49ers, #1 in the NFC West. They got the best freaking quarterback that's in the league right now. He's killing it. Brock Purdy's killing it. Chase Young has given this team so much energy. I love it. I love it. I love it. It is Victory Monday, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, let's look forward to tonight's game, Philadelphia, Kansas City. I'm excited. I hope you are excited. We'll be back later tonight to talk after all the games when it's officially Seattle week. We'll be back tonight. Niners will officially be on the clock for Seattle after the Philadelphia Kansas City game. Please hop on. We'll be live talking all about it. You guys have a good rest of your day. Happy Victory Monday. Fred Warner, happy belated birthday. This man crushed it. And Talanoa Hufanga, prayers up, man. I hope his rehab goes very well. Love the guy, and I'm just absolutely gutted for Talanoa Hufanga. But in the meantime, it is all about the rookie, Jair Brown, next man up. Let's go, baby. You guys have a good rest of your day.